Welcome to the Hawatmeh show on American One. Today I have a special guest, Christopher Tees, who is the CEO of Park South Capital. He's in investment, banking. However, he's working on a new company, changing lives throughout the country. Stay tuned. Up next. Back on the Hawatmeh show, my special guest, Christopher Tees. I can't wait to talk about your company, how you started, and this new thing that you're working on that's going to change so many lives in America. Chris, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely pleasure to be here, and such a beautiful day. Looking forward to your subject, and let's get into it.
Yeah. So how did you start? Now, as the CEO of Park South Capital, what is Park South Capital? And
Sure. We're a single family office that was created in 2013. So my partner and I spent a better part of 35 years as bankers on Wall Street, and made the big shift over to a single family office, as I said, in 2013, where we really focus on direct investments in four verticals. The one that is of here now is in the healthcare and the biotech sector that has really gotten our interest in what we're doing. So at the end of the day, what we're doing today is very different than creating efficiencies in the market. We have a drug company that is actually fixing people, and we'd love to dive into it with you.
That's why I want you on here today. I was so excited to have you on because you're a numbers guy, finance, banking, investment, and you kind of shifting and now making a difference, changing lives. This is something so important. It's not only veterans that need this, but
Right.
Abused,
The general population.
going through trauma, PTSD. Right. This is something that needs to be out there, and I'm so excited about, especially after COVID. So many lives. They don't talk about the suicide rates, but here's something that you're doing to help improve their lives. Tell us about it.
Right. So our journey had nothing to do with the pharma or bioscience community. It was a personal journey with relationship and special forces who said one day to us in 2017, hey, there's this procedure, there's this drug, you've got the chops to get this into the market. But the real issue that we had is suicide rate in the military, especially in special forces. And it was at the time when we looked at PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what the initial indication that we're treating, it was considered a military issue. It really wasn't general public. Although it's been around for 70 years in terms of the diagnosis, the real attributes of PTSD, the general public, were really in the military. And it's so sad that we probably lost 10 more people to one on suicide after the conflict in the Middle East. It's been horrific. As of today, I think 182,000 suicides that have been reported directly to PTSD in the military. But that's only direct report of someone pulling a gun, taking a knife, or overdosing. What they miss are all the other comorbid situations of self-abuse that potentially led to death. So those numbers actually were reported last week. It's closer to 44 deaths a day within the VA military sector. And that's not a popular number. People can debate that up and down. But at the end of the day, it's a big number. So when we jumped into this, Ola, it was to help the military and to get the support of the military. The procedure is called a stellate ganglion block. It's a double injection in the neck at the C6, followed by a C3 or C4 with a special patented drug. We've had a significant success rate, plus 80%. With over 8,000 patients going through clinical studies with MGH, Mass General Hospital, and Harvard to try to get this through emergency use authorization, fast track designation, using 2 known drugs to get into the market. But I shift for a moment, Ola, because you brought it up, is that COVID did a number on us. It did a number in 2 different areas. One is what became a mental health issue prior to the conflict of COVID. I call it the conflict of COVID, turned into a tidal wave of mental health issues. And if we run the clock forward now to 2023, while the military certainly still has their own challenges related to mental health, the general public, per your opening, is really suffering the greatest. Our teenagers are on serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Adults are taking pills left and right. They're self-medicating. And it's been an explosion of people that want help due to, as in the opening, it could be distress, it could be trauma, it could be domestic abuse, it could be losing your job at the car dealership or at Wells Fargo, whatever triggers you. Today, because of COVID, has really put a more of a finer focus on the attributes of mental health and really opened up how vulnerable we are to a larger situation in terms of both the society and America First situation of how are we treating this and what are we doing to put boots on the ground versus just saying, hey, we have a problem we need to treat.
I don't think enough is being done, because when you look at those numbers, I mean, I would say 1 in every 4 or 5, or even, 1 in 3, mental illness is a huge problem in America today. And it's like putting a Band-Aid. I mean, you see these nonprofits opening up left and right. They have the building, but on the inside, these human beings are empty and they're damaged and they have trauma. What are we doing to help them? And that's why I'm a big fan of this.
So I think you opened up a can of worms on 3 areas. And I want to just take an analogy of if someone has a broken leg, you go to Vail and you break your leg skiing, they don't send you to rehab the next day and say, fix it. They go fix the leg. They put a cast on the leg, they reset it, or they put pins in it, and then they send you to rehab. The same thing in mental health is we've got a pipeline or a funnel that takes a patient and says cognitive behavioral therapy or exposure therapy or other therapies are the gold standard. And they have worked historically, but in the mid-teens to low 20s success rate. And they have extraordinarily high washout factors. So if we look at saying, let's fix the leg before we fix the person, that's what our intent is to do with our treatment and our drug. Is it going to work for everyone? No, it's not. But you open up a second chapter of the discussion is what are people doing? So there's been an explosion into psychotic and alternative drugs, especially in the psychedelic world, which has been adopted by certain military sectors in MDMA and ketamine, cannabis, and psilocybin are probably the top 4 in terms of the psychedelics. But we feel that they help a lot of people and certainly they're going to have an impact. Most of them are masking agents to the real issue or the compelling issue that drives someone in the first place to have trauma and dealing with it. So while we are very strong supporters of all therapies to help people, even just seeking help, the reality is that until there's a therapy that actually has broad-based, evidence-based treatment that works, that's been approved by the FDA, there are no on-label FDA drugs for the treatment of PTSD in the market. The third layer that you brought in is that when we look at COVID, that's one thing. But if you go back just one chapter to the opioid addiction discussion, the opioid pill mills that, especially in the Florida region, that were creating huge problems, weren't that the drugs, OxyContin and even fentanyl, weren't approved for certain uses. It was the way that they were dispensed. And so that you had doctors that were called pill mills that were just writing OxyContin because one day my head hurt, the next day my shoulder hurt, next day I have back pain. And of course, you're going to have a legion of addicts out there who then rotate their addictions. So the funny thing is, and we talk about this because there is some humor here, is if you ever go to a Smoking Anonymous meeting and you step outside, everyone's drinking. If you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, everyone's smoking. If you go to a sex addict meeting, people are smoking and drinking. So people trade their addictions. In this particular case that we're talking about, we're not sure that the psychedelic is going to fix maybe the root cause, but they're certainly good at masking and they're probably a lot of fun to take.
Wow. So to my viewers that are out there, how can they get a hold of your product?
Right. So there's only 2 mechanisms to get into it. Either you're part of a clinical study that is being run by Harvard and Mass General, or we're launching through my partner's foundation, free treatment initially in the state of Florida for anyone that has economic need to be treated for free. We're also treating incarcerated individuals for free. We've extended that into pre-care, what they call harm prevention as well. So we're looking at a 3-part program. One is harm prevention. Harm prevention includes Narcan or naloxone in terms of the spray, but it also includes fentanyl test strips to see if what you're taking is actually spiked. And there's enough cases on a different show that you can bring in people to talk about the crisis in fentanyl and how it's affecting us, but a lot of it directly correlates to the mental health problems. So we're looking at abatement, treatment, and harm reduction as the 3 pillars of what we're trying to do. And to the extent that each of your states that your listeners in have received up to $53 billion in opioid settlement monies, those are all trickling down to help people provide therapy, to provide home assistance, to provide counseling, to provide lots of drugs. But I think we're the only one that is actually doing something to abate the situation in terms of trauma, treatment, PTSD, and the correlation to opioid use disorder.
Absolutely. And that is so needed. I was watching your video with the testimonials. It's so touching. It's so surreal. And it's, I'm going to be posting it and linking it. Where can my viewers find you?
Yeah, so I'm on CAD Therapeutics is probably the best way to hit admin. I have to be careful how I say this, Ola. We went from getting maybe 2 calls a week from the pizza delivery guy to getting 3,000 calls a week incoming after featured on 60 Minutes in the Wall Street Journal. So the frustrating part for us is you can't go to your doctor and get this until it's on label use. You can be part of a clinical study. The good news is that we believe this will be fast tracked into the market this year. We believe that people will be able to go to their doctor, get a script, and get treated. We believe that our treatment, you can shoot a gun, fly a plane, or play golf right after. So you're gonna lose your cognitive function. But at the end of the day, you need to talk to your therapist. You need to talk to your general practitioner to see if it's right for you. And at some point, we want to roll this out nationally. So we really are looking at 3 issues on this call. One is that the issue of PTSD in the market and mental trauma is not a debate anymore. COVID accelerated that. The opioid situation exploded and accelerated that. Number 2, the treatments that are available today are still in their infancy. So whether it's a psychedelic, whether it's traditional cognitive behavioral therapy or cognitive processing therapy, those all work. And number 3 is that there is hope. And there's hope for our teenagers, there's hope for adults, that you're not alone. And if you see something, say something, pick up the phone. The suicide hotlines are there. But many times it's your brother, your friend, your sister. Everyone has touched one relationship, maybe even one half relationship directly to someone with mental health issues. So to the extent that we can make an impact in that sector, that's what we're all about. And that's my mission for the next 5 years.
I love it. There's such a demand for it, especially at a time like now. We can't improve America and see America grow if the people are damaged. And this is something that's going to help everyone. I'm so thankful to have you on today. Thank you so much. I will plug in your contact information. You have a blessed day. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. We look forward to continued discussions. And everyone that's listening out there, there is hope and there's a way to break the chains of addiction. Hopefully we're one of the stops you get on your journey. Thank you so much, Ola.
Absolutely.